Okay, what is up, everyone? My name is George, and today I got a new kind of video. I'll be calling it, the Chaos Reviews. Where I take a game I just played. It technically would be a game I just spent the past week and a half or so, and then just going over what I thought was my experience with the game. Maybe giving it a formal review. I'm gonna talk about the story, the gameplay, the difficulty aspects, any multiplayer, and maybe post-game content. If it has any replayability value. If it's a game that's worth coming back even after you beat it. So let's begin. Okay, so the game I played the past week and a half was God of War. Technically God of War 4, but it's not stated in the game. It's just stated as God of War. But it is nonetheless God of War 4, as it continues the story from God of War 3. Now, I am a pretty God of War fan. I played God of War 1, I played God of War 2. I actually still have my copy of God of War 2 for the PlayStation 2. I don't have the copy of God of War 1. I played, I believe, the remastered version of it. And I played both Ghost of Sparta and Chains of Olympus for the PlayStation Portable back in the day when they were around. I got God of War 3 Remastered for the PlayStation 4, and I did get into God of War Ascensions, even its multiplayer. I was a really good fan of its multiplayer. So I know Kratos, I know his story. Spartan. So let's just talk about how it begins, how the story drives into from the beginning to the end. Alright, we'll start with that. Okay, so the story begins. Unfortunately, I did not record the first hour and a half or the first 2 hours of me playing God of War, so I don't have any footage for that. I do have everything else though, but I'll tell you what happens. If you have not played this game, or spoiler alert, I will put it on. I'll try to make a notification on the video. Anyway, story begins. Kratos has a new family, a new start. He is no longer in Greece. He's no longer with the Greek gods. He's in another land. Midgard, to be precise, but we'll get to that a little later. He begins by sort of training his son Atreus how to hunt. Kratos has been a warrior for the past, ever since we got introduced to the character. He's constantly in war. He became God of War. He got ripped from his title of God of War, and then he went over and took vengeance on his father Zeus, and brought down all of Olympus with him in God of War 3. So now God of War 4 essentially takes up a new realm. We're no longer dealing with Greek mythology, nonetheless we're dealing with Norse mythology. I'm talking about Odin, Thor, Loki, Asgard, all these things, right? Gnomes, dwarves, a whole different aspect of what will be going on around the same, similarly in the same era. Well, people would think about these gods, right? Which is powerful beings from other deities that will control specific parts of mortals. But now we're dealing with a different kind. We're no longer Greek mythology. This is Norse mythology. So anyway, Kratos met a new woman. If you know anything about Kratos, he already had a wife and kids, and he had to murder them because Ares had told him to murder them. if I remember correctly. Something along the lines of he had murdered his family and he felt very guilty, but nonetheless, it was what he had to do to appease the gods. Ares, and I believe it was in, early Kratos. So now a new child, he's learned from his past. He wants to, I guess he now coaches his boy. But anyway, game starts. Kratos is collecting like a big log that he's gonna use for the wood, which he will later fire up, and he will use that fire to cremate his past lover. He burns her to ashes, which is, if you know anything about mythology, it's kind of like what you would want to do, right? You want to cremate the body so the spirit rests. I don't know. I watched too much Supernatural back in the day, so salt the bones and burn the bones. So there's no spirit laying around. Okay. So the wife dies. Kratos is now left to train the boy, and they begin, I guess, sort of training before they take the task of they embark on the journey. I'm gonna just let you guys know journey. The journey was basically take the ashes from the mother and sort of dispose of them in the highest peak in all the realms. Unfortunately, they don't let you know that all the realms was the original quote from the mother. They tell you that quote mid through the game. I believe they say something of, this, throw my bones on the highest peak of Midgard. That's what in the beginning. That's the beginning statement. It doesn't go down the line where they say, well, turns out she said, dispose of my bones in the highest peak of all the 9 realms. I'm gonna get to that later. So Kratos begins to train his boy to hunt. Finally, Atreus, he's given a bow. He's sort of walking through how to use the bow, how to hunt. It's kind of very tutorial based on the beginning levels. Until and so they're just chilling at the house one day, and finally he notices, a presence, like something out of the ordinary. It almost looked like if Santa Claus was pulling up in his house, like just something shaking up on the roof, and then just landing in front of his door, very menacing like. So he tells the and then you hear a voice, like, come out, I know you're in there. And Kratos tells Atreus, hide underneath that. He's got like a secret basement compartment underneath his house. So Atreus will hide in there while Kratos deals with the outside intruder. Now the outside intruder, forgot about his name. Let me check real quick. Okay, so the story begins. Unfortunately, I did not record the first hour and a half or the first 2 hours of me playing God of War, so I don't have any footage for that. I do have everything else though, but I'll tell you what happens. If you have not played this game, or spoiler alert, I will put it on. I'll try to make a notification on the video. Anyway, story begins. Kratos has a new family, a new start. He is no longer in Greece. He's no longer with the Greek gods. He's in another land. Midgard to be precise, but we'll get to that a little later. He begins by sort of training his son Atreus how to hunt. You know, Kratos has been a warrior for the past, you know, ever since we got introduced to the character. He's constantly in war. He became God of War. He got ripped from his title of God of War, and then he went over and, you know, took vengeance on his father Zeus, and brought down all of Olympus with him in God of War 3. So now God of War 4 essentially takes up a new realm. We're no longer dealing with Greek mythology, nonetheless we're dealing with Norse mythology. We're talking about Odin, Thor, Loki, you know, Asgard, all these things, right? Gnomes, dwarves, you know, a whole different aspect of what will be going on in around the same, similarly in the same era. What people would think about these gods, right? Just powerful beings from other that, you know, deities that will control specific parts of mortals. But now we're dealing with a different kind. Of no longer Greek mythology. This is Norse mythology. So anyway, Kratos met a new woman. You know, if you know anything about Kratos, he already had a wife and kids, and he had to murder them because Ares had told him to murder them, if I remember correctly. Something along the lines of he had murdered his family and he felt very guilty, but nonetheless it was what he had to do to appease the gods. Ares, and I believe it was in, you know, early Kratos. So now a new child, he's learned from his past. He wants to, I guess he now coaches his boy. But anyway, game starts. Kratos is collecting like a big log that he's gonna use for the wood, which he will later fire up, and he will use that fire to cremate his past lover. You know, he burns her to ashes, which is, you know, if you know anything about mythology, it's kind of like what you would want to do, right? You want to cremate the body, so the spirit rests. I don't know. I watched too much Supernatural back in the day, so salt the bones and burn the bones. So there's no spirit laying around. Okay. So the wife dies. Kratos is now left to train the boy, and they begin, I guess, sort of training before they take the task of they embark on the journey. I'm gonna just let you guys know the journey. The journey was basically take the ashes from the mother and sort of dispose of them in the highest peak in all the realms. Unfortunately, they don't let you know that all the realms was the original quote from the mother. They tell you that quote mid through the game. I believe they say something of, you know, this: throw my bones on the highest peak of Midgard. That's what in the beginning. That's the beginning statement. It doesn't go down the line where they say, well, turns out she said, dispose of my bones in the highest peak of all the 9 realms. And we'll get to that later. So Kratos begins to train his boy to hunt. Finally, Atreus, you know, he's given a bow. You sort of walk him through how to use the bow, how to hunt. It's kind of very tutorial based on the beginning levels. Until and so they're just chilling at the house one day, finally he notices, you know, a presence, you know, like something out of the ordinary. It almost looked like if Santa Claus was pulling up in his house, like just something shaking up on the roof, and then just landing in front of his door, you know, very menacing like. So, so he tells the, and then you hear a voice, you know, like, come out. I know you're in there. And Kratos tells Atreus, you know, hide underneath that. He's got like a secret basement compartment underneath his house. So Atreus will hide in there while Kratos deals with the outside intruder. Now the outside intruder, I forgot about his name. Let me check real quick. Okay, so Kratos answers the door to this being. His name is Baldur. He's like from Asgardian, I would say. He's from Asgard. He's a god. You know, Kratos has been known for dealing with gods before, you know, him being himself a god. But this is a different type of god. This is an Asgardian god, you know. It reminds me a lot of, like, you know, you see. I was a big fan of Saint Seiya back in the day. So you've seen Saint Seiya fight you know, they fight the original 12 houses of Athena, and then the later seasons they'll fight the warriors from Asgard, right? And these guys are like, way, like, what, like, how are these guys so powerful? Well, they're from another realm, you know. Their power scaling doesn't compare enough to what they've been used to. So I thought it was pretty interesting seeing how Kratos at first, you know, being this big dude, and seeing Baldur, you know, it's kind of like a smaller fellow. You know, Kratos punches him a few times, and then knocks him out, and then Baldur is just like, okay, now it's my turn, and then he just unleashes this like full power. It sends Kratos, you know, it tips the scales. Kratos didn't know what he was up against. You know, someone that's just as strong as physically as strong as Kratos, which is insanity to me. It was, you know, it was quite exciting to say the least. Like, okay, wow, like, you know, Asgard, all right. And then, you know, I guess that's where you get the, you know, in every God of War game there's Kratos, the rage ability. You kind of go in berserk mode. In God of War 3 you had the Blade of Olympus, which did massive damage. In this game you get the Spartan rage, but we'll get to that in gameplay aspects a little later. So he kind of awakens that ability, and he notices that Baldur has a regenerate property. He's kind of like, he kind of mentions it in the first fight. You know, I feel no pain and I cannot die. Will you be the first to let me feel pain, or the one to kill me? And you do end up beating the fight. You know, you do kind of knock him out, knock him senseless, get him out of there. But it wasn't over like that. The first fight just kind of put Kratos, like, you know, it made him rethink, like, you know, just because he's the God of War doesn't mean he's nowhere near as strong as some of these Asgardian people, you know. So that was fun to see. So later down the line, finally they, you know, Baldur showed up. He basically destroyed the field of Kratos' house. He kind of shook the ground. So then Kratos now has to be, you know, he picks up Atreus. You know, he says, okay, well, it's time we embark on this journey to follow your mother's wishes. You know, which was to sprinkle her ashes down the highest peak. They think it's the highest peak of Midgard, but we'll get to that later. Turned out it actually being the highest peak of all 9 realms. So eventually, they embark. They leave the house, and that's basically where the story actually begins. You know, they begin their round, the quest. You meet a witch named Freya. She kind of helps you guys out on the journey. She puts like this, I guess, like a spell that will help. That helps Kratos and Atreus stay hidden from people from Asgard, from other gods. So the goal is to reach the highest point, you know, which is like a big mountain. So that's the goal, reach the high mountain. They go, they figure out there's a black, like a black, just some black essence in their way, so that makes them have to fall back. And they realize that the only way up this hill is to get rid of this black fog. And to get rid of this black fog, they have to visit one of the 9 realms. It being Alfheim. Alfheim is like this realm that is kind of known for dark and white elves. I mean, I'm not gonna talk about every little thing. I feel like I am. But anyway, they go, they get the stone, they come back. They're able to. They get this like this stone, and the stone is able to, you know, kind of like absorb. It either absorbs or dispels this sort of like black magic. Oh, they get to reach the top of the mountain. Before so, they fight this dragon and get rid of the dragon. It grants, well, it gives them new powers, new abilities. It gives Atreus the ability to shoot thunder arrows, which I thought was pretty broken at first. And so it could get pretty chaotic, but that's the game. That's gameplay wise. Anyway, they get to the top. They eavesdrop on the 3 Asgardians, and I'm gonna get their names right now. One of them being Balder.
Oh, I can't watch this.
Okay, so they get to the top of the tower, where we'll later learn that Mimir is being punished by Odin by not being able to move from like this sort of spell or curse. But Kratos showed up, and he's kind of hiding with Atreus climbing the mountain, and it's kind of like it wouldn't be smart for Kratos just to bust out in the open, because he'll have to deal with 3 Asgardian gods: Balder, which he faced earlier, Magni, and Modi, which are Thor's sons, and they'll show up later in the story. So finally, he kind of just eavesdropped. They kind of figured out that all 3 of them, Magni, Modi, and Balder, are searching for Kratos and Atreus, because they got like not that they got unfinished business, but they kind of got like this knowing that, hey, we need to find these because, you know, we gotta find these 2, because something about, you know, Atreus being, you know, I guess spoilers, Atreus is sort of like a hybrid god. Oh, and then a hybrid god, right? Let's just say that. So finally, the 3 Asgardians leave. They leave through like this special gate. I guess they go to Asgard or whatnot. And you finally climb up and you meet Mimir. Now Mimir is willing to help with your journey on the, you know, how to reach the next part of the story. Now this is the funny part, because once they reach the top, Mimir Kratos was like, okay, well, we reached the highest mountain, time to get rid of the ashes. They're like, yeah, I guess so, but it turns out the mom has said, Kratos recollects, right? Kratos recollects, and he's like, wait, well, Atreus, she said the highest tower, highest peak of the mountain in all 9 realms. And that's when Mimir, Mimir's got like a special eye. That was a special eye given to him by the giants, because the giants trusted him with it. And Mimir is the most intelligent man or god, or I don't know what to call these Asgardians, but he's the smartest, and the giants trusted him, and I guess they forged this eyeball onto him that gives him like special access to like more knowledge and whatnot from the giants. Not too keen on Norse mythology, but just kind of what I learned from just the game. So Mimir shows him, oh no, well, this is not the highest peak of the 9 realms. And they're like, what do you mean? And you see for yourself. And I guess he shows him like a projection of the highest peak in all the 9 realms, and it is not in Midgard. It is in another realm known as Jotunheim. Jotunheim is the name of the realm with the highest peak, and it's the realm of the giants. Mimir shows them, and they're like, okay, well, guess we gotta change the plans. Guess now we gotta go to Jotunheim. So, what can you tell us, Mimir? How do you take us to Jotunheim? And Mimir at this point is willing to help you guys. He's immortal. I mean, he's not immortal. He's bound, right? He's bound by this curse from Odin. And Mimir makes a proposition. Well, I can help you guys out in your journey, but you have to chop off my head, and then you take me with you. And like, well, wouldn't that kill you? Well, yeah, but now you figure out a way to bring me back to life. If I remember correctly, the Freya is mentioned. Freya as being the witch. They mention her, and they say, okay, well, after you chop my head off, go talk to her, and hopefully she'll figure out how to bring me back to life. He said he'll basically be a talking head. And alright, Kratos chops off his head, and the next thing you know, Atreus and Kratos are taking the head to Freya to sort of resurrect him. And now you got a new member in the team. So now it's Mimir, Kratos, and Atreus. And I gotta admit, once Mimir showed up, once Mimir is with you in the team, he adds so much. He adds like this charm and this charisma to the gameplay. It's just so good. You don't feel like you're just wandering with Atreus, because Kratos and Atreus constantly fight. It's kind of like it got annoying. I think Atreus was like got a little too cocky. He lost his balance a few times. Kind of like he tries to rebel. But it's good. It's a good story. But once Mimir shows up, there's a third party, and Mimir is just full of knowledge. He busts out this like story from like Scotty, stories from Norse mythology, and he's just a real good like crack just to listen. Here, as a matter of fact, I'm gonna show you guys a clip where I thought was just pretty funny.
Be more convenient for me than having a crystal I could lose.
Did it hurt?
No, because I wisely fortified myself with 16 cups of Billow Maiden's ale. Got so inebriated I tried convincing the giants to put them in my nipples instead. Almost talked them into it too. Can you imagine? Mimir of the Bifrost Teats. Ah, those were the days.
Ew.
Okay, I'll stop now.
Okay, so that's the kind of comedy relief Mir adds to the team on the journey, and he'll talk like in that tone, and just with that like charisma in the journey, and it makes the adventure just seem more more enjoyable, to say the least. It's quite the relief. So finally, Freya revives Mimir. Mimir now joins your team, and they're trying to figure out how to get to Jotunheim. Now I forgot a few details. I don't know exactly all of how they reach Jotunheim. I mean, I do know how to reach Jotunheim eventually, but I mean, there's a little few side quests. Mimir is known for being like smartest man, so he's actually able to communicate with Jormungandr, which is the world serpent, and so since he's able to communicate with it, I believe they speak and they essentially have to Jormungandr tells them to open a certain door or something. They need a special shard from the giant. There's a dead giant. I forgot his name. But you go. He opens a new door for you, a new passage. And there's a dead giant. You gotta do all these things to get the shard that is able to open, doors that were sealed by Odin. You later know them as Chambers of Odin, but before that, you just kind of need that item just to open a door just to a certain realm. So you go, you get this shard from the giant, and in the way, you fight Magni and Modi, Thor's sons. After the fight, I believe Kratos kills Magni, and he lets Modi die. I mean, he lets Modi escape, since Modi couldn't really defend himself. But Modi said, he'll be back. He wants vengeance on his brother. But enough of that. So you get the shard. Now this shard is you find out that with this shard you could you unlock certain rooms that were not available at first, and you're able to fight Valkyries. Now Valkyries come to play later. I'll mention them later, but Valkyries are just a powerhouse. So once you get this item, I guess you go on and you find out how Tyr, which is like very legendary, almost as legendary as Kratos would be, but for Norse mythology. Tyr was just praised by the giants, and essentially throughout all of Midgard, I guess Tyr was pretty legendary. He was known for being able to transverse through the 9 realms, and it was a gift from the giants. The giants gave him like a gift, that they gave Tyr the same gift they gave Mimir, which is the kind of like those golden eye nonsense that allows him to traverse through the 9 realms. But before that, I forgot to mention that after the fight with Magni and Modi, Atreus becomes ill. He gets like a high fever. He passes out, and it's up to Kratos and Mimir just to kind of take him to Freya. And Freya watches over him, and Freya tells him, well, the only way to cure him is through the heart of a gatekeeper from Helheim. So now the next thing to do is Kratos embarks on the journey to Helheim. To find this heart, bring it back to Freya, so she can help Atreus come back to conscious, because he just passes out. He just straight up is coughing blood, high fever. You know, he's about to die basically, and you gotta go solo. All you have is Mimir, but I mean, that was pretty. It's just good enough with Mimir. So you discover that you need this. Once you retrieve this thing to help out Atreus, to finally continue the journey to find out. I guess this is like this stone. Modi will show up later down the line, and Modi is just talking all this trash to Kratos and to Atreus, and Atreus kills Modi. I mean, he kind of had it coming, trash talking that much right after you're just not. I mean, right after Kratos spared him, kind of just came back, and he got his just desserts by Atreus. I feel like I'm getting off topic here. Anyway, turns out you guys once Atreus is back on his feet, you make your way back up the mountain again, and the gate for Jotunheim is open. Before you're able to transpass, Baldur will show up, and they make another fight scene, they make a mess, and they end up breaking the gate. So now Kratos and, well, basically the crew has to find a new way to find out how to get to Jotunheim. And they can't use there's this realm. Well, there's this bridge that is able to traverse through all the 9 realms. But it's only possible to do that if you have the certain key to the realms. And so far, I mean, they're in Midgard, and the only one that was able to traverse through all the 9 realms was Tyr, because he had the special key. And so forth and so on. Also to mention, Kratos at this point gets his Blades of Olympus back on his way to Helheim the first time. It turns out that the axe, the Leviathan axe, which is his main weapon, won't do any harm to whatever lies in Helheim. The only thing that will harm creatures from that realm are his own weapons. So he goes back to his house, picks up, they look like relics at this point. They're just so beat up, so rusty. Swords of Olympus, and he gets all these flashbacks. These flashbacks with Athena, and there was another flashback with Zeus later down the line. But anyway, once once that big fight scene goes down with Baldur and Kratos, everyone gets transported back to Helheim. You know, Kratos, Atreus, Mimir, even Baldur. They all just go there by sheer luck. Because Baldur's trying to kidnap Atreus at this point. And oh goodness, I'm gonna pick up a lot of talking. And Kratos will bust out this, you know, he's like, well, we all go together, and then they all go down together to Helheim. You guys make it out. Baldur does. It's not shown how Baldur gets out of Helheim, but he does. And finally, you know, what comes once you make it out of Helheim, you sort of met with, you know, you guys need it's kind of difficult to realize, well, since Mimir only has one eye because Odin took away his other eye, he technically needs both eyes for Tyr's, I guess it's like his chambers to work for him, because his chambers would only work for Tyr. They would have worked for Mimir too, but since he only has one out of the two eyes, he needs both of them in order to create like a reciprocal sort of connection with the realms, kind of like a bounce effect. You know, one eye will bounce to the realm thing, but it won't work with one eye. He needs both of them. So so next thing that happens will be, Mimir talks to Jormungandr one more time, and he's like, hey, you have any, you know, there's a statue of Thor in Midgard. Jormungandr hates Thor, so he bites the crap out of the statue of Thor and kind of eats it. And I forget who they ask, you know, well, what happened to your second eye? I was like, well, I don't know. Someone tells them that it was placed in the statue of Thor. You know, they just figured that out, you know, in the story. And so they go out. So, hey, what happened to that statue of Thor that was right here? Well, Jormungandr ate it. Mimir talks to Jormungandr. Hey, do you happen to know if my eye is within you? And Jormungandr is like, well, you're welcome to come in and check. So Jormungandr will lay down in the water. He opens his mouth, and now the whole crew is like, so we're going into Jormungandr's mouth? Well, I guess so. So they go in, they find Mimir's eye, and finally Mimir's got his two eyes back. They are now able to create the bounce effect to go to, I forget what the bounce effect was for, to be honest. But they are finally able to go and open Tyr's chambers to find I guess the universal stone, the stone that Tyr carried with him, that would allow him to go from realm to realm. You know, he was able to traverse all the realms. So they finally go. They find the stone. They're now able to go through all the realms, and soon after, well, before that, I'm getting ahead of myself here. While they are still in Jormungandr's, you know, while they are still in Jormungandr's belly. While they're still in Jormungandr's belly, the stake starts to shake. So they're like, whoa, what's happening? You know, the whole boat is kind of like tilting, like the whole belly is shaking. What's happening? And then finally, the snake will spit out spits him all out. Spits Kratos, Mimir. Mimir's attached to Kratos. And he spits out Atreus. And they're just kind of, well, what happened? As it turned out, Baldur was outside. He kind of knew they were inside the snake's belly. So what he does is he ends up gets beating up the snake from the outside in order to cause the snake to spit him out. And this is like the final part, right? Like the final fight. Baldur's had enough of Kratos. Kratos isn't willing. Kratos has like this path. They're trying to do what they want to do. And so finally, the final battle is to say they duke it out. You fight Baldur one last time, and it turns out that Atreus was carrying like a bow made out of what's that thing called on the mistletoe? I believe it's called a mistletoe. No, yeah, I think it's a mistletoe, like a arrow made out of like mistletoe. And Baldur punches Atreus as Atreus was trying to defend Kratos. So Baldur punches Atreus, and some of the arrow that was given to him by one of the dwarves, that's a blacksmith, had a mistletoe, and the mistletoe made like a reaction to Baldur, like it made him like glow, like it made him bleed, but his bleeding wouldn't regenerate. So they're like, Baldur starts like going insanely crazy, like, whoa, I can feel again, I can feel pain. He's like, thank you, I'm gonna enjoy this. There's the final fight. Freya shows up. Freya ends up, they kind of realize that Freya was. I think they realized a little earlier that Freya was Baldur's mother. They figured that out in Helheim. Sorry, excuse me. I'm talking way too long. Anyway, what ended up happening was the main point. The main point I'm trying to make here is the mistletoe. Freya. There was a scene where Freya was afraid of the mistletoe. She burns the mistletoe. I guess she knew all along that mistletoe was the kind of like undo the spell. Freya made a spell on her own son Baldur, which made him immortal, made him not feel pain. But the mistletoe would cancel that out. So once Baldur came in contact with mistletoe, it made him not mortal. I guess he was still a god technically, because he was born from a god. But it actually made him not have this immortality on him. Kratos and Atreus can finally, permanently keep him down. If he dies now, he can't just come back. So final fight. Baldur wants to kill Freya for whatever reason. He's got his own reasons, and Freya's willing to let Baldur kill her. But Kratos, being a man of ethics, he's not willing to let Baldur do as he please, even though it's not part of his business. I mean, he could have just let Baldur kill Freya, but he wasn't gonna have it that way. He wouldn't see it that way. He wouldn't see that fit. So you fight Baldur, that's trying to kill Freya, and Freya's trying to save Baldur from Kratos killing her. I know. So anyway, Kratos finally puts Baldur to sleep, not gives him like the final hit. And now you got Freya mad at Kratos. She's pissed off, right? Like, I guess that goes down to just parents, I guess Freya didn't want her child to not have his wishes, even if it included him. Well, if she would have given her life for Baldur, you know what I'm saying? That's basically the main point. But Kratos just saw it unethical to let Baldur kill, so he had to kill him. And Baldur out of the picture left it broke Freya. Freya now pleads vengeance on Kratos, like she'll come back for him. But I'll get to that later. Finally Baldur out the way. And Freya out the way too. And them having the key and the stone to traverse the multiverses. Everything's said and done, the gang is finally able to use the Tears Stone to go to, travel the multiverses, the realms, I mean. And they finally reach Jotunheim, and they are able to just reach the highest tower, and get rid of the Mother's ashes. And as it turned out, on their way there, discovered the prophecy of Atreus being half giant because the bomb was a giant. And that was it. That was the end of the story. Roll the credits. Roll the credits as you make your descent down the highest peak, and you go back to Midgard. I thoroughly enjoyed the story. I thought it was a really good story. I mean, God of War games have decent stories, but this game has story the entire way. Most God of War games, they have a little bit of story and then all this action, and then they'll just get into the next boss fight and whatnot. But this was just a story from beginning to end. Obviously they couldn't fit all 9 rounds in one game. That would be the longest game ever. I felt like I talked way more than I should have. But now it's time for my, honest opinion about this game. I thought it was the best God of War game up to date. Combat was insane. I enjoyed it. I felt like it was a mixture of God of War with a tint of The Witcher, because of the parryings. The parrying is more useful. I mean, you want a parry, it gives you so much advantage. I played the entire game in a hard difficulty, and then halfway through the game I realized, well, it doesn't really matter what difficulty you play this in, because it's not like there's a trophy that says beat the game in hard. So you could technically change the difficulty at any point in the game. So that's good for some players that just want the story, but if you want a trophy, I guess it might turn you off. So you can just play the game in the easiest mode and get all the trophies. There's no need to play hard. And which leads me to my next point. I thought gameplay was great. What's post game? There's no multiplayer. I covered, I believe, most of the story by now. There's no multiplayer, just single player experience. Again, that's kind of how God of War games are. The only God of War game that included multiplayer was Ascension, but that multiplayer was a beast of its own, man. It was broken, but it was fun broken. So that's a game I would like to see a remaster. If anyone out there can make that happen. Post game, all I found post game was just, you know, returning to your home. But I'll get to that in a moment. We'll get to that in my final thoughts of the game. Post game, there's 8 Valkyries. Valkyries are like super powerful. They're just the strongest creatures, you know, compared to most bosses. They are like the strongest, and not to mention some of them get progressively stronger. Some are just stronger than others. They got like these broken moves. I never found it necessary to buy resurrection stones, which are what the game gives you to like come back to life. If Kratos dies, you know, Atreus could resurrect him. I never found the need to use them until I fought the Valkyries. And so there's 8 of them. They each drop like really good loot. Once you get rid of all 8, you fight the Queen, which is the 9th Valkyrie, and so forth and so forth. And the 9th Valkyrie, being the Queen, she tells you that, you know, well, Freya was the original Valkyrie. She is technically the god of Valkyrie. She had wings before, and well, that's when you realize that, well, Freya's trying to get her wings back so she can become a Valkyrie herself again. I'm guessing she'll be god tier Valkyrie. But you don't get to see that. I'm speculating a God of War 5. God of War 5 for, you know, I'm maybe PlayStation 5. I don't think they'll try to make a new God of War game for the PS4. They could, but I'm probably saying they'll wait for PS5, since I'm sure PS5 will be announced in 2020 and maybe released by 2021. But I'm just talking, that's future problems, you know, that's way down the line. But I do think there's a God of War 5. It's just how this game has ended, you know, just the story. How Freya's mad at Kratos, so she has to make her comeback. And not only that, alright? Not only that, but the ending cutscene. It's just a straight up powerhouse of a scene. For sure, there's gotta be a continuation to Kratos having stepped into Norse territory. But that's it. That's, I guess, that's the end of this Chaos review. Hope you enjoyed this like storytelling. I mean, I surely enjoyed playing the game, and you know, I sure had my, well, I don't know what I'm saying anymore, but I had my opinion on the game. I thought it was a great game. Play the story, play the game, enjoy the story. Play the game, enjoy the story. I will be you know, the sequel, it's looking to be hype from what I saw on the last I guess it's like kind of like a Easter egg cutscene, because they don't really tell you how to reach this cutscene, but it's definitely a great game. I give this game a 9.5 out of 10. I would have given it a 10 out of 10, but just some of the, you know, I would have liked the trophies. You know, if there was a difficulty, if there was a reason to be difficult, there should have been a reason for it to be difficult. But other than that, just a bomb of a game, bro. It's a bombshell. It's definitely a must-have. Anyway, hope you enjoyed. I'll be signing out and catch you all next time. Thanks.